Whether you're playing for a place in the Fantasy Football Championships in Week 17 or just want to avoid that dreaded last place punishment, these are the Week 16 waiver wire pickups that you should be taking note of. I'm Tom Strachan, you know my work from fantasypros.com. Stick around because I've got several players rostered less than 5% who you should be picking up this week. Starting, of course, with the cover boy, our guy Jerome Ford, 43% rostered on Yahoo League, so there will be some out there where you just won't be able to get him, but we've got other options coming up, so stick with us. He scored 10.1 PPR points in games without Nick Chubb this year. Cleveland, they played the Bengals in Week 16, who are ranked 26th in run defense DVOA. Nick Chubb confirmed out for the rest of the season with a broken foot. You really hate to see it, but Jerome Ford is going to be a massive beneficiary to this. Donta Foreman's probably going to be active again. He's been inactive over the last few weeks since Nick Chubb came back. He's not going to be a problem. Maybe he gets a little bit of a work, but Jerome Ford is going to end up playing about 75% of the snaps, 75% of the work, and Jerome Ford could win you leagues. Similar player in terms of how much he's rostered, Tyjae Spears, 44% rostered. Tony Pollard left the game against the Bengals, didn't return, and Tyjae Spears just turned in one of those huge performances that if he was on your bench, you hate to see. If he was on your best ball roster, you love to see it. 4 carries for 5 yards, which is pitiful. Did find the end zone on one of them for a touchdown. But where he really made hay was 6 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Now, of course, this is just the weak Bengals defense that everybody puts up points on. But next week, the Titans play the Colts, and the week after that, in Fantasy Championship weekend, they play the Jags. Those are 2 games where you can definitely rack up fantasy points at the running back position. So I think that Tyjae Spears, if there's news that's negative on Tony Pollard, then definitely look to pick him up. It might just be a case for now, with the season over for the Titans, they want to get a bit more of a look at Tyjae Spears anyway and protect Tony Pollard. We'll get to the next player in just a minute, but if it's your first time finding us here on the Fantasy Sanctuary, hit the subscribe button. We're just gearing up to get into Dynasty, rookie prospect season, all of that, and then, of course, it'll be best ball season. We cover you all year round here for fantasy football. Sincere McCormick, 44% rostered again. If you're watching this on Monday before the Raiders play, go and pick him up right now where it'll cost you nothing. He had 15 of 16 running back rush attempts in week 14, 24% route share, so he's not really as involved in the pass catching game as we'd like. But in half PPR particularly, this is a good sign. I mean, he has rushed for over 5.2 yards per carry over the last 2 weeks. He looks like the best running back that the Raiders have had all season. You look at the other guys, Zamir White, Alexander Mattison, even Amir Abdullah. They just weren't terribly efficient guys, but McCormick definitely more efficient than those guys. Plays the Falcons on Monday night, then the Jags, and then the New Orleans Saints. Look, the Jags and the Saints particularly, you can run on. Those are 2 weak run defenses. Moving over to the wide receiver position, my guy Rashod Bateman. It is so good to see him thriving this year. 6 top 36 finishes, 3 in the top 12. Just coming off his first multi-touchdown performance of his career. More touchdowns this year than the rest of his career combined. Really having a career year at a point where a lot of people thought he was left for dead. But if you ever paid attention to what had gone on for Rashod Bateman over the years, there were a lot of extenuating circumstances, and having a healthy offseason. Second year under Todd Monken, really started to put it together. 16.1 average depth of target. That does make it hard to catch everything thrown your way, which is why, and it makes it hard to dominate targets. So he's only got a 14.6% target share. But everything Bateman's doing, the team seems to love. He's a big part of their offense. The Week 17 matchup against the Texans in particular is why I'm bringing this up. This Week 16 game against the Steelers, that could be a tough one. No bones about it. But Week 17, if you need to chase some ceiling, Bateman can give you that because the Texans, they keep up giving up big plays downfield. And when Lamar goes downfield, it tends to be Bateman. Aaron Rodgers, 35% rostered, 11 yards short of having consecutive 300-yard games for the first time in so long. Came really close, just really was dealing. And yes, it was just the terrible Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, no mistake about it. This is a team who are one of the worst pass defenses in the entire league. But in Week 16, he plays the Rams pass defense, who are also terrible. So there are reasons to be optimistic that Aaron Rodgers can keep this going. He's playing for his future. Devontae Adams is playing for his future. It feels like Rodgers is just really giving his every last bit that he's got to try and decide whether he wants to go out on a good note or whether he wants to come back next year and play again. And he's been a top 12 quarterback in back-to-back games. That's worth going on, particularly if you've just lost Geno Smith. Moving back to the running back position briefly. Kendre Miller, 11% rostered. Alvin Kamara banged up with an ankle injury, left the game yesterday, didn't come back. So Kendre Miller rushed for 46 yards on 9 attempts. That's 5.11 yards per carry against the Commanders. Now, the Commanders, they are a soft team. You can run on them. But the games against the Packers in Week 16, and particularly the game against the Raiders in Week 17, they're also teams that you can run on at times. So I think that Kendre Miller needs to be rostered everywhere, just in case something does happen to Alvin Kamara and we don't see him for the rest of the season. Let's get to those deep ads. Brenton Strange, 2% rostered, 69 snaps yesterday, 42 routes run, and 12 targets. His 11 catches were more than Evan Ingram's had in a single game this year. His 18.3 PPR points were more than Evan Ingram's had in a game at all this year. Brenton Strange has just been more productive straight off the bat. We saw in the games that Evan Ingram missed earlier this year, Brenton Strange filled in amicably. So he plays the Raiders in Week 17, which is what I'm particularly high on for this one. They're very poor against tight ends. They allow the fourth most fantasy points to the tight end position. And I think that rostering Brenton Strange for that matchup, it'll allow you to have another look in Week 16, see if this usage is sticky. And then if it is, Week 17 could be an absolute smash spot. We're 6 minutes in. I know you're enjoying the content if you got this far. Hit the subscribe button. Let's move on. Malik Washington, 0% rostered. Now, this one is contingent on the fact that if Jalen Waddle's okay, then this isn't worth doing. But if Jalen Waddle's injury caused him to leave the game yesterday, caused the Dolphins to shut him down, let's not forget the Dolphins are practically cooked for the season now, then this is worth doing. He caught 5 of 6 targets yesterday for 52 yards. Week 17, the Dolphins play against the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns pass defense is atrocious this year. Everyone can pass from them. They're really struggling against wideouts in particular, and I would be quite happy to take a dart throw on Malik Washington in deeper leagues in Week 17. Jalen McMillan, 8% rostered. Our guy Tyler's been all over McMillan all year, and he deserves some praise because McMillan is getting hot just at the right time when it matters the most. McMillan's had over 18 PPR points in each of the last 2 games, plays Dallas in Week 16, who can't defend anything, allow the 11th most wide receiver fantasy points, and then gets the cupcake matchup of the Carolina Panthers in Week 17, who ranked 29th in pass defense DVOA. McMillan can absolutely keep going here, and all I can think about is Chris Godwin would have been in for monster games, but Jalen McMillan is the next best thing right now, and he should be rostered in every single league. Romeo Doubs, 38% rostered. People don't like Romeo Doubs. People think he's not flashy enough, but he's in 3 games over 17 points since Week 6 alone. Second multi-touchdown game of the year. Jordan Love really enjoys throwing the ball to him. He's a constant player who's out there. He's not as volatile as Christian Watson. I get you might want to chase ceiling with Christian Watson. Jaden Reed, he goes in and out of game plans at times, but Romeo Doubs, he's just out there, consistently used. And the Packers, they play the Saints, who have a very awful defense this year, and then the Vikings, who give up a huge amount of fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Romeo Doubs, absolutely somebody that you can rely on, particularly if you need a bit of a mid-range floor to help your roster. Those are your Week 16 waivers. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know your starting lineup issues, any trade questions you've got, anything you want to ask. Here on the Fantasy Sanctuary, we take all your questions and we answer them all. Appreciate you for watching. Smash the like button on your way out of here, and we'll be back next week for Week 17's waivers.